I was never the smartest kid in the room, but I was always the one who couldn't stop thinking about the future. And that's what pushed me forward because when I was young in South Africa, I spent most of my time reading books, playing with computers, and imagining worlds that didn't exist yet. And honestly, I didn't know where any of it would take me. I just knew I wanted to build things that mattered. And when I wrote my first game at 12 and sold it, it wasn't about the money, it was about the realization that ideas inside my head could become something real, something people could use, and that feeling changed everything for me. And eventually I decided that the world wasn't going to hand me the future I wanted, so I had to go out and build it. And that meant leaving home, moving to North America, and starting from scratch, which wasn't glamorous and wasn't simple, but I had the sense that if I didn't take the risk, I'd always regret it. And when I got to Canada and later the US, I worked odd jobs, slept on couches, and devoted every spare moment to learning. Because the faster you learn, the faster you can solve problems. And I had a lot of problems I wanted to solve, and that led to Zip2, where my brother Kimball and I coded day and night, literally sleeping in the office because we couldn't afford both rent and the company server. And I remember showering at the YMCA and telling myself, this is temporary, the mission is worth it. And after Zip2 and later X.com, which became PayPal, I learned the single most important lesson of my life, that building a company is not about avoiding fear. It's about doing things despite fear, because fear is part of innovation, and if you're not scared, then you're not doing something big enough. And after PayPal, I suddenly had resources for the first time in my life, and people assumed I would retire or relax. But all I could think about was how humanity was still fragile, still vulnerable, still at risk of stagnating. And I couldn't let that happen, so I invested everything again. I mean, literally almost everything into SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City, because if you want to push civilization, you have to push hard. And SpaceX certainly pushed me to the edge since the first 3 rockets failed, and each failure was like a punch to the gut. And I remember thinking, we only have one more shot, we either fly or we die. And when Falcon 1 succeeded on the 4th try, it wasn't luck, it was the result of an entire team refusing to quit, even when the world said it was impossible. And Tesla was no different, because everyone thought electric cars were a joke. And I kept hearing that a startup couldn't possibly take on giant automakers, but I believed that sustainability wasn't optional. And if we didn't accelerate the transition to clean energy, we were going to run out of time. And the darkest moments were when both Tesla and SpaceX were on the brink of collapse at the same time. And I genuinely didn't know if we'd make it, but the only thing that kept me going was the idea that the future had to be better, that the risk of failure was nothing compared to the risk of not trying. And eventually the Model S launched, and it changed the way people saw electric vehicles, and SpaceX landed the first orbital rocket booster. And we proved reusability wasn't science fiction, but essential if we're going to make life multiplanetary. And that's been the mission all along, because becoming a multiplanetary species isn't about escaping Earth, it's about safeguarding consciousness itself, the spark of intelligence, the rare phenomenon that allows the universe to understand itself. And every time we launch a rocket, every time we expand the reach of renewable energy, every time we push the boundaries of what's considered normal, we increase the odds that humanity survives and thrives. And whenever people ask me how to stay inspired, I tell them to find something worth dedicating your life, to find a problem that scares you, find something that if you don't do it, you can't live with yourself, because the truth is motivation fades, but purpose doesn't, and you don't need permission to chase something big. You just need persistence and the willingness to be misunderstood for a very long time. And if there's anything my story shows, it's that you don't have to start with privilege or certainty. You just have to start and keep going even when the path isn't clear, because the future is built by the people who show up to build it. And if you're willing to take the punches, learn from failure, and push through the doubt, then you can create something that outlives you. And in the end, that's all I ever wanted to do. Build things that matter, push humanity forward, and prove that impossible is just the starting line. And as the years went on, I realized that every time we solved one impossible problem, another one appeared in front of us like some endless staircase. And instead of feeling exhausted, I felt energized, because challenge is fuel, and the moment things get easy is the moment progress stops. So I kept pushing, and that led to projects like the Gigafactories, which were insane to build at the speed we attempted. And people said it couldn't be done, but people say a lot of things when they can't imagine what you're trying to build. And I've always believed that scaling matters as much as inventing, because a great idea that can't reach the world won't change anything. And that's why we kept expanding manufacturing around the globe, working through supply chain crises, pandemics, and every possible setback, because resilience is a muscle, and the more you use it, the stronger it gets. And meanwhile, with SpaceX, we moved from Falcon to Starship, and people kept calling it crazy, gigantic, unrealistic, even dangerous. But the point wasn't comfort, the point was to push the limit of what a spacecraft could be. Because if we're going to settle Mars and become a multi-planetary species, we need a ship big enough, strong enough, and reusable enough to carry not just astronauts, but entire communities, entire systems of life and industry. And Starship is the closest thing to that vision that exists. And every test flight, whether it explodes elegantly in the sky or completes the mission perfectly, is progress. Because iteration is how breakthroughs happen, and failure is just data with drama attached to it. And while all that was happening, I continued to think about the future of artificial intelligence, because it's the most powerful force we've ever created, and it has to be guided carefully, since it could be the best or worst invention in human history. And that's why I pushed for development methods that keep humanity at the center, because technology should extend our potential, not diminish it. And then there were ventures like Neuralink, where we explored merging biological and digital intelligence, not because it's a cool sci-fi idea, but because millions of people suffer from neurological conditions that could be treated if we understood the brain better. And the long-term goal isn't just restoring function, it's expanding the boundaries of human possibility. And through all of this, the thing that keeps me going is the belief that we are capable of more than we think, more courageous, more resilient, more inventive. And every time someone says I'm lucky or that things just worked out, I think about the nights spent staring at failure, the bank accounts dropping to zero, the near breakdowns, the pressure of building companies that could collapse in a day. And I remind myself that luck favors people who refuse to quit. And whenever I speak to young engineers or entrepreneurs or dreamers, I tell them the same thing. You don't succeed because the path is smooth. You succeed because you walk the path even when it's on fire. And even now, after everything, I don't feel like I've made it. Because that phrase doesn't make sense to me. The moment you believe you've arrived, you stop evolving. And I never want to stop evolving because the universe is too big, time is too short, and there's so much left to build, from sustainable energy grids to multi-planetary habitats to AI systems that uplift humanity. And if my journey stands for anything, it's that anyone can participate in shaping the future. You don't need permission, you don't need certainty, you don't even need to know the whole path. You just need to take the first step and trust that momentum will carry you forward as long as you refuse to give up. Because the future belongs to the brave, the curious, the relentless, and the ones who are willing to risk everything for an idea that matters. And if you're one of those people, then keep going. The world is waiting for what you're about to create. And as I look at everything still ahead of us, I realize that the real mission was never about rockets or cars or factories. It was about expanding the scope of what humanity believes it can do. Because when people look at a rocket landing itself, or a massive battery powering a city, or a neural implant helping someone move again, they start to wonder what else might be possible. And that shift in mindset is more important than any single invention, because progress is contagious, inspiration spreads, and once someone believes they can create something meaningful, they start to push boundaries in their own life. And that ripple effect is how civilization moves forward. And I think about that every time I'm faced with another impossible deadline or mountain of technical problems. Because I know that every breakthrough, no matter how small, nudges the entire world forward, even if people don't see it immediately. And the truth is, I've never been motivated by proving critics wrong or winning awards or being comfortable. I've always been driven by the idea that the future is malleable, and if we're stubborn enough, brave enough, and slightly crazy enough, we can bend it towards something better. And that's why I keep working even when I'm exhausted, why I keep pushing even when the odds look insane, because somewhere out there is a kid staring.